All right, time to wrap up 2019 and start planning for 2020. Oh man, 2020 is going to be such a great year. Not just a whole new year, a whole new decade. Oh, so excited. Let's plan all the great things I'm going to do in 2020. Well, that was unexpected. Whew. Man, 2020 did not go as planned. All right, but okay, it's the end of the year. Going into a new year again, things can be better. Can't possibly be as bad as 2020 was, right? Well, another year in the books, Bird. That's been tough, but you know what? We've got another year coming. Things are going to be okay. Things will be different next year. All right, let's tie up some loose ends and get going for next year.
Hi everyone, I'm attorney Aiden Durham with 180 Law Co. in Colorado, and welcome back to All Up in Your Business. The end of the year is a great time to check off some boxes and make sure you've got everything covered for your business for this previous year, and that you're doing things to plan and make sure you're going to be successful next year. Before we get into my year-end business and legal checklist, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and check the description for links to additional information and resources. The first thing you can do to wrap up the year is file your company's annual report or periodic report if you haven't already done so. Pretty much every state, I think there are a few that don't have this requirement, but most states have some kind of annual reporting requirement. So double check your business's status if you're registered as an LLC or a corporation. Double check your status with the Secretary of State. Make sure you're in good standing and that you haven't missed any filing deadlines. If you accidentally forgot to file that annual report, in most states, you can still do it after the fact. You might have to pay a little extra in filing fees, but it's typically not too late. So get those reports filed now if you haven't already done so. To make it easier on yourself next year, consider signing up for some kind of automated report filing service. Many registered agent services offer this. So if you work with a corporate registered agent for your business, check with them to see if they offer some kind of automated report filing that you can sign up for too. I have a few companies that I work with that offer this, so check the description for recommendations for the people that I like. While you're there, while you're checking your business with the Secretary of State, make any additional filings that you might need to do to update your business's information. If you changed the name of your business in the last year, go ahead and amend your formation documents, articles of organization, articles of incorporation, file an amendment to change the business name if needed. Make sure the address of the business is still up to date and correct, including the registered agent information. And if necessary, file whatever documents to make sure everything is up to date and accurate. Next up, hold your annual meeting if you haven't already done so. Most LLCs don't have any kind of requirement for an annual meeting of the members or the managers, but if your operating agreement says that meetings will be held on an annual basis, then you need to follow that and hold your meeting now if you haven't done so. A lot of corporations, depending on the state, corporations might have a requirement for certain kinds of meetings, shareholders, board of directors. So look at your company's paperwork, bylaws, operating agreements, and see what those requirements are. If you need to hold some kind of meeting, do it now. Or you might have the option to do some kind of written action lieu of a formal meeting. Again, this is going to depend on your company's paperwork and the laws in your state, but many LLC operating agreements might allow you to avoid the need for an actual formal meeting and take any kind of action in writing instead. If you're not sure exactly how to go about that, I have a link to download a sample consent to action form that you can work off of in preparing your annual resolution or annual consent to action in lieu of an actual formal meeting. Next up, review all of your contracts with third parties, vendors, suppliers, service providers. Many of these contracts may be terminating or expiring soon, or they may have already terminated. time earlier in the year and now you might be on kind of a month-to-month thing, or they might be expiring soon next year. These are going to be opportunities for you to maybe renegotiate terms. Or if you are in a contract that you don't want to renew, there might be some kind of requirement for giving advance notice to terminate before it renews again. Whatever it is, check and review your existing contracts with third parties. Put calendar reminders of termination or expiration dates or advance notice requirement dates. And while you're looking at all those third-party contracts, now's a good time to start thinking about sending out 1099s to independent contractors. Before we can do that, we need to make sure we have all of their tax information correct. So start sending out W-9 forms to all of your independent contractors that you worked with this year. Getting those W-9s back will help you in preparing and sending out the 1099s, which this year for 2022, that deadline for sending 1099s is going to be January 31st, 2022. So make sure you have all of that tax reporting info now so you won't be delayed in getting those 1099s out next year. So we reviewed our contracts with service providers, vendors, third parties. Now's a good time to also review your own contracts, your service contracts with your customers, or your purchase agreements, or your terms and conditions. Any agreements or contracts that you use in your business in providing your service or product, take a look at those, make sure they still line up with the current process of your business and how you go about offering your products or services to the public. If you're going to be making any changes to your services next year, see if we need to make some revisions to your contracts to reflect those changes. Maybe you had a really terrible experience with a client or a customer this past year, and we want to avoid that from happening next year. A great way to do that is to write it into your contract, set expectations, set boundaries, and update your contract so that whatever went wrong this year doesn't continue to go wrong next year. And same with those third-party contracts. Mark on your calendar any kind of renewal or termination dates that might be important with regard to your own contracts too. A new year, of course, means new taxes to be filed. So, touch base with your accountant, your CPA, and start preparing for tax time next year. Make sure you have all your accounting records in order, your receipts are all recorded, make sure your books are up to date. Tax professionals get pretty busy in the beginning of the year with everyone's new taxes coming up. And so the best way to make sure yours get filed in time and correctly is to be prepared so that they're not scrambling because you're scrambling. If you're handling your own taxes, then make sure your own bookkeeping records are correct and up to date. Any financial statements, or if you're not even quite there, maybe now's the time to sign up for a good accounting and bookkeeping program or service. It's never too late. I'll link in the description to a few of my favorite kind of accounting and tax programs to help you with that. While you're chatting with your accountant or your tax professional, talk about the possibility of maybe making an S corporation tax election next year. If you're currently being taxed as a sole proprietorship or a business, it's possible that an S Corp tax election could reduce your tax bill. And if you want to make that tax election effective in 2022, then that election needs to be filed prior to March 15th, 2022. If you file it after that, then the election won't be effective until 2023. So talk it over with your tax professional and see if S Corp election is the right thing to do for next year. Speaking of money, let's start planning our budget for next year too. Look at all of our numbers from this previous year. How much income did we have? How much expenses did we have? Which of those do we know are going to happen next year? Plan out what money is going to look like next year so you can go in with a plan and not get caught up with bills that you weren't expecting to pay or expenses that you weren't expecting to have to incur. And lastly, of course, while we're planning a budget, it's also a great time to plan our goals for next year, for our business or personally. What kinds of things do we want to accomplish? What do we maybe want to change? What do we want to not do anymore? What do we want to do more of? Our goals and our expectations for ourselves can change. They can be fluid. But setting some kind of at least basic ideas or goals of what do we want to happen next year is going to help going into it. Listen, for a lot of us, the past 2 years haven't been spectacular. It's been pretty challenging for a lot of the world, 2020 and 2021. But, there is a new year upon us. Anything is possible. And so it's important that we go into it as prepared and planned as possible, because just like we learned with 2021, things could very well go south again. That's all for this episode, folks. Drop a comment below. Let me know what you think. And again, don't forget to check the description for links to additional information and resources, including that sample of consent to action that you can download, and a few links to automated report filing services and accounting bookkeeping services that I like and suggest you look into. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Aiden Durham. Cheers to the new year, and I'll see you next time.